Hello everyone, my name is Roya and today I'm coming to you with the books that I read in the latter half of April. So firstly, the first one I'm going to talk to you about is The Mercy Makers by Tessa Gratton. This was sent to me for review by Orbit Books, so thank you so much to Orbit Books for sending this ARC my way. It is so appreciated, but unfortunately I did not enjoy this book at all. So this is basically about a girl whose father he got imprisoned for committing illegal acts and such, and she was his accomplice who no one really knows who she was. They don't know that it was his daughter because she used a code name. They just know that it's some woman, basically. And so in order to not get caught, she says that she's not that person, and she infiltrates the palace to try to get her father out. So the thing I liked about this book is the world building. I thought that the world building was really detailed and really well thought out, as far as things like what people wear, how people are addressed. There are gender pronouns that are not taken from this world at all. It's totally made up for this book, as far as I can tell. All this stuff that I thought was really detailed and really good, but unfortunately that was it. That was the only thing that I liked about this book. I felt like the main characters had none of the characters actually had hardly any personality. There was one character that had maybe a little bit of a personality, and it's someone you're not really supposed to like and all of that. And so the whole book came across as very bland. Any sex scenes, of which there are a lot, because our main character does hook up with two different people in this book at different times. The sex scenes felt very gratuitous just because there is nothing between the characters. There's no chemistry, because without any personalities, they can't have any chemistry. So there was a lot. This book is very long, and it's a lot longer than it had to be. I felt like it was mostly filler, and I felt like the magic system, which is a pretty huge part of this book, was very lacking in detail as to how it's done, anything, how it works. There are things like, for instance, when we first are introduced to our main character, basically what happens is her friend comes in and says, your father's been captured, we need to burn all your stuff, like blah blah blah, so that she's not implicated, basically. And so the first thing that he does is smash her spiders that are on the wall, and they're like live spiders, and it's never really explained why her spiders had to be smashed. She's a little upset about it, but are these not normal spiders? Are they spiders she created? We can only assume that's the case because we're not really told what the deal was in this book. And then like the stuff of hers that she uses for magical things are burned at that point, and we have not seen the use of them or anything. We hardly ever get any inkling as to what the use of them was. For instance, she has a red glove that she is without for basically the entire book. And we're never told explicitly what it does or anything like that. She just says things like, oh no, if only I had a red glove right now, I could do this, or like something like that, but we don't know what the functionality of them is, and she appears to be able to do everything just fine without those things. So so that's just one example where we're just not given enough detail as to how the things in this book work. So basically it took me an absolute age to get through this book, unfortunately, because it's just so full of filler and stuff that I don't care about, and I just wanted, like, plot, characterization, character development, something, but so ultimately I was just not a fan, unfortunately. I'm going to follow that up with the best read of the year so far, and that is The Last Tiger by Brad Ryu and Julie Ryu. This is a fantasy version of the Japanese occupation of Korea, and it is a fictionalized, fantasy version of how the author's grandparents met, and it is so good. So it's about a girl who is from a wealthy family in the occupied nation. Her family is trying to kind of assimilate with the occupiers, with the colonizers, and then she meets a boy who works for her family as a cleaner. It was so gripping right from the beginning of the book all the way through the end. The characters are so likable and you really want to see them succeed. It makes some really good points about colonization and oppression and the lengths to which people will go to keep the power that they have. And this whole book was just so real. And even though the world building was very, very simple, and you can totally tell that what historical stuff everything is based on. It's very heavily based on, you know, Japan and Korea, the Japanese occupation of Korea, and you can totally tell. But it is exactly what it had to be, and it was so amazing. And it's honestly, I have read over 60 books so far this year, and this is the first one that's gotten 5 stars from me. So yay, please read it. It comes out in July, and I absolutely loved the crap out of this book. Bloomtown by Allie North. This is the first in a duology about a woman who gets kidnapped off of a train by some really weird children who are working for this outlaw lady who is trying to basically collect the ransom on her from her husband. So this was a really good book. I really liked the whole premise. So I think I mentioned when I hauled this book in my book haul, that I did once actually conceptualize and start writing a book that was a female outlaw and high society lady falling in love type of thing. And so I really wanted, you know, part of me just still wanted that premise so much. And this definitely delivered. I definitely thought this was a really good love story between, you know, two women who are very, very different from each other and all of that. But I did feel like this book was a lot longer than it necessarily had to be. It's a chunker for a book where through the majority of the book it's just her being at the outlaws hideout, not really knowing what's happening, and she's there for 2 weeks, but it felt like 2 months, I swear to God, because so much was just filler, and a lot of it was okay, you know, but I thought that, you know, they could have done something else to indicate, you know, some kind of time passing type of thing than just have her being like a whole like long ass montage of like her teaching the children how to read and blah blah blah. It's just so random, but overall good book, would recommend, but I've definitely read better and less, you know, long stuff, or where the length had more to do with the plot. Like maybe she could have been finding stuff out that was actually carrying the plot. Breath of the Dragon, this is about basically a boy competing in a martial arts tournament in a fantasy world that is very Chinese based, and it was really good. It was actiony. I liked it, but I did think that it definitely was a little bit devoid of just world. I wanted a little bit more world out of it, but I did think that this was a really good read. Rebel Skies, because of course after reading a Korean-based and a Chinese-based, you know, book both in the same month, I had to follow it up with a Japanese-based book. I don't know, but this is basically about a world in which there are creatures made out of paper. It was really short. There wasn't a whole ton of plot to go off of. I didn't really have much thoughts about what there was, but I definitely really liked it. Finally, The Gilded Crown. This was really good in that the vibe of the entire book, the whole thing, character relationships, you know, the world, there's a magical cat, everything, the whole vibe of the book is exactly what I want in a fantasy book, 110%, but unfortunately the characters and the plot did not live up to what the vibe and just the world and all this stuff was like. So I really felt like the characters were flat and pretty forgettable. The overall concept of the story was pretty forgettable, but like really loved being in this world. The writing was great, the dialogue was great, and of course the magical cat. So I really enjoyed this book while I was reading it, but there was just not enough compelling story in there. So I was really sad because, you know, as soon as we get through the first few chapters and I'm like, I am digging the vibe of this book so much, but then it just never got better from there and didn't really have enough conflict for me to be like, page turner. I wanted more out of this book, but it was so good. So anyway, those are the books that I read in the latter half of April. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you very soon with a new video. Bye!